So CCS it's kind of a growing area in Texas. There's a lot of talk about it. There's been some permits that have been granted by the EPA. The Railroad Commission has kind of been giving ongoing jurisdiction over these types of wells, and where it's really headed is that right now, Texas is overhauling its regulatory scheme. They're looking at some things like notice requirements, public comment, a period for public comment on these CCS projects, and they're seeking what's known as permitting primacy. And what that means, it's just kind of a fancy way of saying that the EPA is starting to delegate the permitting process to certain states if they can show that they've built the right regulatory framework to kind of make sure that these CCS projects are being built, appropriately, that the state is doing the right due diligence. And part of that is going to be notice requirements to surface owners, mineral owners, their lessees, in some cases, adjacent owners or lessees. And this is to ensure that everybody's comfortable with either the minerals have been, the mineral reservoir has been depleted to a point that the CCS operations aren't necessarily going to interfere much at this point, or at least to get these guys to kind of sign off. In many cases, you may be injecting the CO2, far below where minerals are being produced. So things like that are being taken into account. And so far, only two states, Wyoming and North Dakota, have been actually granted primacy by the EPA, and they've been kind of given their own permitting process. Louisiana, like Texas, is seeking to do that right now. It's been in the past about a 4 or 5 year process to get primacy granted. So we're still in kind of the early stages here, but if the Railroad Commission is kind of able to get control of this permitting process, we really could see these Class 6 CO2 wells, as they're being called, really come into their own in Texas, and this could be a huge area moving forward. And my prediction is that it will be.
Yeah, I mean, as kind of our relationship goes between landmen and attorneys, we tend to see the front end of activity, and it's been a big thing for us and a number of other brokers across the U.S. getting acreage capture, right? And so now the discussions is turning to, okay, how do we go about the permit process? How do we secure our rights? And then now with Railroad Commission stepping in and starting to talk about notice to mineral estate owners, I mean, it's generating a lot of work for some brokers to determine, who those mineral owners are, so you can properly notice them. And it's an evolving thing. I see it depending on your where you're injecting CO2, if it's above or below known producing areas. It could turn into a waiver scenario where you're having to, for your business risk, you've secured, rights from the mineral owners. And so I see in some cases it evolving to that, but, going beyond notice and to actual, securing waivers from those parties. And a lot of the work we do is given that a lot of our carbon clients are oil and gas based type folks, they're very aware of mineral interest and development rights and things like that. So a lot of the decision making on our part is, what surface owners also own minerals. Let's try to build our project there so that by virtue of securing our carbon leases, we've also minimized our risk on the mineral estate side. And so decisions like that are a big deal, in parts of the country where there's maybe less oil and gas development and less access to 3D seismic. We're doing 3D shoots, to determine, yes, we've done the science, we've done the work, and there are no formations or zones capable of producing hydrocarbons. And therefore you minimize your business risk. So again, it all goes back to, what I said earlier, business risk and good informed decision making in your land capture, part of the process.
Yeah, and I think an interesting angle that kind of plays into what you were saying is that you've sometimes got these kind of activist plaintiffs attorneys who are out there, and they're talking to some of these mineral owners and saying, hey, look, your minerals probably have no value. They never have historically, and they never will. Suddenly you've got this solar developer with very deep pockets, developing your land. This might be your best chance to squeeze some value out of your minerals. It may be your only chance. So, there could be some other motivations going on here. And I suspect there may have been a little bit of that in that Midway Solar case that I keep talking about, is
Right.
guys saying, hey, look, nobody's ever going to lease these minerals. Nobody's ever going to drill a well here. This might be our opportunity to kind of squeeze some blood out of this stone. And so just, again, this is just my personal off the record take on things, but something to be aware of.
I would second that take, sir.
Well, and all the more reason to be more diligent, right?
Exactly.